It's now 5 o'clock. Linn-Mar School Board meeting will be called to order at 5 p.m. in the boardroom of the Learning Resource Center. Can you please take roll to determine quorum?
Buckholz.
Here.
Morey.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Rollinger.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Wall. Here. Weaver.
Here.
Quorum present at 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second.
I have a motion by Barry and a second by Clark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So this evening with special recognitions, I'm going to welcome Kim Belt to the podium. We're going to recognize our contest speech students.
Here we come. And actually, I'm going to turn it over to the students themselves. Our coaches, Ann Fry and Kevin Fry, they have a lot to be proud of, so I'm going to turn it over to the students.
We can talk.
Yeah, we can start.
Just a second. First, we should give Mrs. Belt a round of applause for everything she does for our fine arts program. I'm ready for it.
All right. So the Iowa High School Speech Association consists of over 400 Iowa high schools, and I found out today that's over 40,000 students from 4 districts in Iowa, and we compete in what's known as the Southeast District. We couldn't do it without our Linn-Mar Booster Club. They pay our registration fees and other costs, and their contribution makes the program free to any Linn-Mar student who wants to participate.
Yes. And we do that with supporting the concession stand. So who's running the concession stand tomorrow night?
They get a gift card as a thank you. So.
Yes, she pays for it.
I
Yes.
pay for it.
We follow the IHSSA's philosophy, no skill is more important than the ability to communicate effectively. So to let them prove it, I'm going to bring our all-state broadcasters, Ian McKinney and Alec Emily. They're here to share more about the program and what they did. Gentlemen, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Fry. So Linn-Mar Speech is broken up into 2 different seasons. We have a large group season followed by an individual contest.
We had a smaller team this year, of course. We had conflicts with music trips to Ireland and Disney World. It's kind of hard to compete with that, I know.
Nonetheless, our large group season gets started in about September. We start working on our various pieces, and then we'll work on those up until our contest dates, which are in January and February. So we have 3 contests, the first of which was districts, which took place at Monticello. There we had 4 teams receive perfect scores from the judges. Wow. So then they advanced to state, which was at Cedar Rapids Kennedy this year. And at Cedar Rapids Kennedy, we had another 3 teams receive perfect scores, this time from a panel of 3 judges. And then from those teams, we had 2 teams, our radio broadcast and TV newscast teams, advanced to the All-State Large Group Festival on Iowa State's campus.
So running directly parallel to the large group season is, of course, individual season. Those rehearsals actually start in December, and they will run up through February and March. This year, the contest for districts was held in Central City. We had 9 students advance to state in 10 different categories. Paige Guthrie in storytelling. She's right here behind me. Jamie Taylor in expository address, who's not with us tonight. Adeline Heitzman in reviewing. Leah Sharnow in acting. Addison Sleazer in prose and after dinner speaking. Isabel Sherman in solo musical theater. Malia Bone in solo musical theater. Myself in radio broadcasting, and my broadcast partner Ian McKinney in radio broadcasting.
And Alec and I had the honor of being selected to perform at the IHSSA individual all-state contest up in Cedar Falls on Northern Iowa's campus. We were 2 of just 16 performers selected from across the state of Iowa to display our skills at that contest.
Those skills that Ian speaks of is we had 30 minutes to take a large packet of information, about 10 pages, filled with news stories, edit them, copy them down into a 5-minute newscast, and perform it live before a critic, our family members, and other guests who were gathered in a large performance studio. During the broadcast, we were also handed a breaking news story which we have to read cold. No rehearsal, we have to do it and make it sound smooth and professional. In more than 4 minutes and less than 5 minutes.
Speech has really allowed us to practice skills such as public speaking that are really a requirement in today's day and age for a wide variety of jobs. And I think I can speak for all of us here where we really couldn't thank Mr. and Mrs. Fry as well as the rest of the speech coaches for the opportunity to work and refine those skills.
Of course, at this point in time, we'd like to open up to you board members if you have any questions for us or the rest of the speech team.
I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
I was a speech nerd in high school. I'm not going to tell you what I did because I'm just not. But I remember how much fun it was and all the skills, and I'm so impressed. And congratulations on all of your accomplishments.
Thank you.
You should be really proud.
So thank you for coming and speaking today. We know how hard that is to get up at that podium. We've got adults that come all the time, and it's tough work. You guys did a great job. Very impressed.
How much time do you guys spend practicing to prepare for this final piece?
So my name is Adeline Heitzman. I am currently a senior at Linn-Mar High School, and I have done this for 4 years. I've had 4 seasons of both individual and group, and it really depends on the type of performance you're going to give. So I know my freshman year in choral reading, we did at least an hour and a half a week in October to prepare for group state. And there's also sometimes that you, for individuals, if you have it in your head, then you only need to spend about 30 minutes a week. But it really depends, because sometimes you think you're right, and then when it comes to crunch time, you're doing it every day. But it really depends on the person, and I think I can speak for everyone that we have different schedules, and work ethics work differently in order to make sure that our product we present to an audience and the judges is perfect. So that really depends on the person, but I know we all put our time and effort that we see fit to make the perfect performance each and every time we perform in front of judges.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you also, but maybe you might be too young to realize that. The older people that are here today understand this. The confidence that you guys have to get up in front of an audience and do what you do is exceptional. You're in a situation of being high school students, being graded by people that you don't know, okay? If you advance, it's a whole different group. But the confidence that the Speech Club has given you will carry forth, I guarantee you, throughout the rest of your life. Because you're able to express yourself in a manner that shows confidence, okay? That you know what you're talking about. You show all the eye contact that is needed in front of people. And that gives the people that are listening to you the assurance that you're committed, that you understand what's going on, and that you do have a voice. And I just can't say it enough. You will realize it later on how much this has done for you in your future, okay? As students, as college students, in the workplace, as a parent. And I commend you tremendously for sticking through all this. And as some of you that might started out shy, just by watching you stand, how confident you are now, that it's helped some of your confidence. And I wish you all the very best.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I also want to say I competed in speech while I was in high school too, and I know firsthand how much work it takes to do what you do, and like others have said, the confidence in all of you is certainly showing. Just your presence in the room. It is something that I know you have worked on, and congratulations to each of you for what you have accomplished, and thank you for coming out tonight and showing us and telling us what you have accomplished. I appreciate it.
Hey, Kevin, could we get them to come out here and face the camera so the patrons of the districts get to match up some of the faces?
I was just going to say that. Good job.
Good.
Good job.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
We have one more special recognition tonight, and I know it's not listed, but if Officer Dobbs could come in here for a second. When he's done high-fiving everyone as they leave the room. And I didn't give him a heads up. But
That's even better.
yeah. But this week, the city of Marion recognized our very own Officer Dobbs. He has been named the 2022 Paul Draper Spirit of Marion Award recipient. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to say that Linn-Mar is incredibly lucky to have you as part of our team, and congratulations on such a well-deserved recognition.
Way to go.
Before we go, just hold on there. You know, I'm kind of a wordy person here.
Nice try.
Just wanted you to know, I knew Paul Draper. I was fortunate to coach his son. So to receive this award and knowing Paul all the years that I did is quite an honor, and it just, you know, shows the community what kind of quality officers we have and what a quality person that you are. And we are just joyous to have you in our district and in our school district. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clark. When I got hired, he was the civil service commissioner, and I got to know Paul very well. And now to be forever connected to his legacy, it's quite humbling and an incredible honor. So thank you for saying that. And thank you, Britt, for bringing me up in front of everybody. I get to do this, and I appreciate it.
Well-deserved.
Well-deserved.
We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
You too.
I need more opportunities where I can just make people stand up and get applauded.
Yeah, that's good.
Without warning. All right, so moving on to unfinished business. Tonight we have Matt Gillespie he's the managing director from Piper Sandler, and I'll let Shannon do a further introduction on what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, we're in the process of getting Matt Gillespie's Zoom hooked up. He has 3 board meetings to attend tonight. We're the first of his 3, so we appreciate him making the time to be here. As you know, board members, we had set today as the date to do some bond refinancing, and we have multiple Zooms of Matt today as the bids came in, and then what those, had some follow-up meetings as far as what those actual bid impacts would be for our district. And then Matt is here tonight to summarize our findings from the last several weeks and months of work, but especially today's follow-up. So with that, I hope Matt can hear us online, and the floor is his.
Yep, good evening, board. This is Matt Gillespie from Piper Sandler, Des Moines. Hopefully you can see my screen here, or maybe you have a physical copy of this board packet. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but then we'll stop and answer questions if anybody has any. The report of sale that you see here on the first page, we did take bids this morning at 10 o'clock, and there were 4 bids that were received. That is on the high side of the typical. We typically kind of get 2 to 4 for sales tax bonds in Iowa. So it's a good show here with the number of bids. The rating that the district received from Standard & Poor's for the sales tax bonds was an A+, and that was achieved through an interview with your administration over the last month or so. And then the winning bidder actually chose to use bond insurance as well. So the bonds will actually hold the rating of that insurance company, which is AA, 2 notches above what the district's rating for the sales tax bonds would be. It's important to note here that we were asking the bidders, so everything you see on this particular page is relevant to this $15,910,000 amount that we were asking them to bid on. And then once we received the bids and knew what the best bid was, we were able to reduce the amount of principal that's being issued to $14,750,000. And I'll explain how that happened here on another page in a few minutes. But what we see here, the lowest bid, and we determined the lowest bid by the true interest rate, which is the blue-gray number that's here, 3.179. That is a weighted average rate. So it's not just a simple average. I think that's fairly obvious when you see that the interest rates that this particular bidder assigned were all 5%. If it was an average, it's just going to be 5%. But it's a weighted average, so weighting the longer term more heavily, plus it factors in any premium that was paid, which there was a very large premium on this transaction, and the costs that were involved from each one of the bidders. The difference between this first and second place bid from 3.17 to 3.20, very close. The net amount, if you look at this net interest cost, was about $14,000. So that's a very, very close bid when we're talking about a $15 million transaction. The other bidders, I guess I should point out the low bid, Hilltop Securities in Dallas, Key Bank in Cleveland, the Baker Group in Oklahoma City, and then Robert Baird in Milwaukee. This page, I'm going to get out of full screen so I can blow this up a bit and show you a little bit more detail because it's kind of hard to see, very small. So the top of the page that's here is showing the two different bond issuances that you have outstanding that were going to be refinanced. So you see one of them was the 2010 bond. That bond had a $1.885 million reserve fund associated with it. That reserve fund is no longer necessary on short-term borrowings. If and when the district comes back and borrows more for maybe new projects in the next couple years, those borrowings probably will require a reserve fund because they will probably be longer term, which is what this was when you issued these bonds back in 2010. But now that there's a relatively short period of time for repayment, the new bidders don't require that reserve fund. So that $1.8 million is one of the reasons why the amount of principal was able to be reduced. And then the the other issue being refinanced from 2015. So coming down to the middle of that page, under the orange box here, this is just the combined two issues. So those two issuances added together. And then under the yellow box, this is the actual result. So this is the new repayment schedule, presuming that the board approves this in a couple minutes. So really we're just simply taking the old bond payment minus the new bond payment to determine how much savings there is. And you can see that it's somewhere between $250,000 and $450,000 per year. But a total, because this last year, when you otherwise would have had the reserve fund to offset, when you will not now, so the total payments are really about $2.5 million each year. The total savings, $608,000. So that number on any other day, had we not looked at this ahead of time, would have been a very substantial, significant amount of savings, and it still is. That's the equivalent of roughly maybe 5 new school buses that you might have over the years, or new computers, etc., whatever you might use the funds for. But of course, we originally estimated that savings to be between $1 million and $1.5 million. But those savings estimates were calculated several months ago. And I think you're all probably pretty well aware of what's been going on in the market. Today was another terrible day in the stock market, and the bond market is also not having a great time. Interest rates have been rising, and that's what this table down here is showing you. If you can see this on your screen, this is just an example. This is the 10-year history of the General Obligation Bond Buyer Index. So it's just one source that we have that shows us historical interest rates. And this is looking back to 2012. And you can see that those interest rates were held in a fairly tight range here for quite a number of years. And just in 2019, did they start to drop to these really ultra low, close to zero levels. And of course, that's when we started looking at your issue, because it was going to become callable this July. And as you're quite well aware, in the last 2 months to 3 months, these interest rates have then gone back up significantly. Most rates for municipal bonds are up 200 basis points. That's 2 full percentage points. So it certainly is no surprise that the savings was less than what we had hoped for, but still a significant savings. So I think the question for the board, and we're going to go over some more pages here in just a minute, but ultimately the question for the board is $608,000 significant enough savings for you to take action and accept the bid? Or is there some reason that you believe interest rates are going to come back down to those ultra low levels sometime in the next couple years? I think most people, although none of us know for sure, most people believe that interest rates are not going to come back down in the near term, but instead they're actually going to continue to rise even higher over the next 12 to 24 months. Again, we don't know that's going to happen, it's not unquestionable that it could be that rates drop back down. So maybe you could capture more savings if you delayed this and refused to do it tonight, for example, and do it 6 months or a year or 2 years from now. But we just don't know. You have $600,000 in your hands currently, right now. The bonds do become callable again in 2027. So if you have surplus funds, you could just pay them off if that was, feasible to do. You could technically refinance them again at that time, although there would only be 2 years left. So it's probably unlikely that you would choose to refinance them at that time. So I'm going to keep going through a few pages, and then I'll come back and ask you guys if you have any questions before we go into the resolution itself. This is just showing us the sources and uses for the transaction. So you're issuing $14,750,000 of new principal, and there was a very large $1.1 million premium that's being paid to the district. I'll explain that in a few minutes, but that allows you to, again, issue less principal. So even though the interest rate you see was higher than the actual interest rate you have outstanding right now, the fact is you're going to issue so much less in principal, even though that principal is paying slightly higher interest rates, that it still nets out savings in the end. In addition, you have the $1.8 million reserve fund that will be collapsed and used as cash towards the towards the transaction. Ultimately, you're paying off $17,565,000 of principal. The costs of issuance, so this would be your bond attorney, Allers & Cooney, Standard & Poor's for that rating, Piper Sandler, the company that I work for, and United Missouri Bank, it's the paying agent and registrar for the bonds. The underwriter's discount, $114,000, that's a combination of the amount the winning bidder is charging as their fee and the insurance cost. So the two things together add up to $114,000. It's the underwriter's choice if they choose to use insurance and therefore divert some of that underwriter's discount toward the insurance premium. The premium actually was slightly higher originally, and then once we were able to reduce the amount of principal being issued, the insurance company did lower that premium, but then that just offset this other number. So the total of $114,000 has been the same since the bid was accepted, or bid opened, this morning. Then we just see a clean version of the repayment schedule. This is really more for your new business manager. When David comes to town, he'll use this for your future budgeting. But there is a note here just reiterating that you're replacing $17.5 million of principal with the issuance of only $14.7 million of principal. And then we come to the page where we try to explain to you, how is this even happening? How could you possibly have 5% interest rates? Why is there $1.1 million in premium, for heaven's sakes? And how does that all net out to the district saving money? Well, it certainly is not obvious. And for those of you that don't really find interest in this bonding and finance stuff, you really don't have to understand what I'm going to talk about here for the next couple minutes. But I think for those of you that do have an interest or somewhat confused by it, it at least warrants a discussion. And again, you can ask questions towards the end. But what we see here in this big red box, the rate, the yield, and the price. So the rate is also the coupon. That's just another word we use for the interest rate. So you're going to be paying these bondholders 5% interest. And you're replacing 5% the 5% is replacing actually lower interest rates. So how do you save money? Well, because the yield on the bonds, this is what the market is. This is what we would look to determine if you had a good deal versus someone else, or what would this investment be like if, instead of me going and buying McDonald's stock or something like that and earning a dividend. So this is how we gauge the market, not the rate. But what's happening here, if we use this first maturity as our example, these bondholders who are buying the bonds are paying the district $1,028.52. We move the decimal place over one for every $1,000 in bond principal. So you're only going to pay them back next July when the bonds mature. You're only paying them back $1,000. That's how it works. You just pay them in $1,000 increments. So this extra $28.52 that they're paying you up front in this first maturity adds up to $51,000, and ultimately they all together add up to $1.1 million. So they're basically paying you this 1.1 million so that you will pay it back to them in effect in a higher interest rate over time. But what it does up front is it allows you to issue less principal. So even though you're paying 5% interest, you're paying it on so much a smaller amount of principal than you did have outstanding that it ultimately saves the district money. I know that doesn't probably make a lot of obvious sense to you, but the math actually does work, and it does save that $600,000+. Just as an example here, North Polk School District, which is just north of Ankeny, Alleman, some of the northern part of the city of Ankeny is actually in North Polk District nowadays. They sold very similar bonds last week, a week ago today. Theirs were for new construction instead of refinancing, but they're reoffering yields, so that's where this yield column is here. For example, they had 2.15 where you have 2.17, and then going out to the longest maturity 3%, you also had 3%. There's some differences in between, but they're minor. So what it's showing us, not only did you get 4 bids today that were competitive and sealed bids, we also have an example from a week ago, a very similar issue that also had a very similar result. So this tells us that this is truly the market, whether we like it or not, this is the market. Then we can go to the savings. This is just another version of that same worksheet we saw before showing that $608,000. And then the timeline here, of course today the winning bidder wired to you what's called a good faith deposit, and that was about 1.5 million, or excuse me, not 1.5 million, $150,000 that was wired to your bank, and they will send the rest of the money to the district on June 22nd. And that will be just before the district pays off the old 2 bond issuances, which are on July 1st. But in the meantime, on May 23rd, at your next meeting, you'll just pass some typical resolutions that are very, very similar to what you do every time the district issues bonds for any reason. The same kind of things are associated with this issuance as well. Those will come to you from your attorney, Allers and Cooney. And then tonight, we have some resolutions that we're going to go to in just a moment. But before we go there, I want to ask, first of all, I'll stop talking and see if any of you board members or community folks that might be there present have any questions.
Matt, this is Barry Buckholz, and I appreciate that last page that you just had up there a few minutes ago, because I think everybody maybe that's online and watching and that are here to understand why we weren't able to lock in those rates back in February when we first planned on doing it. You know, it talks about the process that we have to go through, and that's why we didn't do it until today. Can you add more to that?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because, and as I suggested earlier when I was talking to Shannon and Gayla, the district could not have captured those rates back when we initially started this process. The rules for refinancing limit you to refinancing these bonds no sooner than 3 months or 90 days prior to the call date of the bonds. So the call date of the bonds is July 1. So April 1 is the very soonest that you could have actually, begun the action to do things, or at least taken bids and such. And these rates began to rise back in January and February. So we were already at this unfortunate situation where rates had risen significantly before there was any opportunity for the school board to do something about it. Could you have moved faster? Well, you could have moved a little bit faster, but not a lot. And you can see just from a week ago, you would have almost gotten the identical result. But we do think that if you didn't do something, and again, this is up to the board to make that decision, but we believe that if you waited 6 months or a year or longer, the situation is probably just going to be worse, and you might lose all opportunity to save completely. Most of our municipalities that had not already refinanced bonds by January or maybe early February, they have all they never even went through the process because their savings was lost long ago. But for Linn-Mar's bonds, now this is both good and bad. It's good that you can refinance, but in particular, this issue had such high rates that even though rates have gone up quite a bit, you still were able to capture a significant amount of savings. Those other municipalities, schools, cities, and counties that we work with that had to just completely abandon their transactions altogether, they were trying to refinance bonds that maybe had, in the 2.5% range, et cetera, which they could have refinanced in January, and you could have gotten, closer to maybe 1.4 plus million in savings then too, but you just technically couldn't do it because of Internal Revenue Service rules, unfortunately. And by the way, I'm not trying to throw that off on anyone else, but I will do so. You can thank your congressional legislators for that. They made a change to the rules surrounding these bonds. It's been now probably, I want to say 7 years ago, I can't remember exactly when. You used to be able to do something called an advance refinancing, where you could have done that more than 3 months before, but the Congress put an end to that, like I said, about 7 years ago, and now you can do some odd things. You can do some things early, but it requires lots of jumping through hoops and taxable bonds, et cetera, and it just would not have been beneficial for the district. Any other questions you have right now?
Doesn't look like it, Matt. This is Britt. Thank you for going through all of that. And
Yep. Are you ready to go through the resolutions? And if so, I can paraphrase them and get you through them. If you're not quite ready for that and you're going to do that later, that's all right too.
Can I make a motion?
You can.
I make a motion to approve the resolution directing the sale of approximately $15,900,000 of school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue funding bonds, Series 2022, to Hilltop Securities as the lowest responsive bidder.
Second.
Yep.
Go ahead, Matt, if you want to add anything.
No, that was perfect.
Okay. We need a roll call vote on this one.
Buckholz,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Rollinger,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Wall. Yes. Weaver,
Yes.
motion carried.
And sorry, Gayla, that was a motion by Barry and a second by Clark. All right, we have our second resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution authorizing the redemption of the outstanding school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bond, Series 2010, dated March 1st, 2010, of the Linn-Mar Community School District, State of Iowa, and directing notice to be given.
Second.
A motion by Rachel and a second by Melissa. Is there any further discussion? Can I have a roll call vote?
Maury,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Rollinger,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Buckholz,
Yes.
motion carried.
And our third resolution?
Redemption of outstanding school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bond, Series 2015, dated July 1st, 2015, of the Linn-Mar Community School District, State of Iowa, and directing notice be given.
Second.
A motion by Rachel and a second by Barry. Can you do a roll call vote?
Nelson,
Yes.
Rollinger,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Buckholz.
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
motion carried.
Thank you. Matt, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Yep, that should be all of the action for the bonds. Thank you, folks. I do look forward, I think, probably to be in front of you in person, I hope, later this summer or early fall. That's up to you guys. But once Dave Nicholson is back on board, I hope to maybe come out and review things with the school board in depth. All the debt that you have, your ability to fund new projects in cash and or borrowing, et cetera. So you can, I don't know if I can say you can look forward to that, but you can look forward to maybe going through that later this summer or fall as your schedule allows. So thank you and have a good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
We will move on to some informational reports. First up, teacher leadership. Shannon?
Well, we switch over. That's quick. He's already got it ready to roll. We're pleased this evening to have 3 of our teacher leaders here tonight to present some work they've been doing, and with our other teacher leaders and with our staff as well. It's still a work in progress, as everything is, but I'm excited to have them give you an update on the work they've been doing to this point and where they look to go in the future as well. So pleased to have Shana, Rachel, and Sam here. I'm not sure who's speaking first, so I'll just hand it over to, looks like Sam.
All right, neat. So we are excited to share the innovative learning model with you guys tonight. I'm Sam Dykes. Last year I was part of the online school in Boulder Peak and Lynn Grove. this year I'm just at Boulder Peak, so it's a nice change to be at one school.
I'm Shanna Helmke. I'm an innovation coach at Novak and at Echo Hill.
And I'm Rachel Morris, and I'm the instructional coach at Novak Elementary.
So this is kind of our agenda, what we're going to go over real quick. We're going to go over what is the innovative learning model, how do we implement it in the classrooms, and then we had a unique opportunity this year to create kind of a cohort. So we'll go over that, some data, and then our next steps, and then if you guys have any questions at the end. So, kind of what is the innovative learning model? We, luckily, with our roles, have had the opportunity to attend tons of professional development, be a part of a lot of district initiatives, and so we've kind of taken the best of the best district initiatives to come up with the innovative learning model, which is an instructional model that can be implemented in any grade level for any content. And so what this does is the innovative learning model. Sorry. Just keep going. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, what it does is it just allows the teachers to really kind of create a classroom that really encompasses just clear routines. It has visuals, engaging activities, and then more importantly, students are really learning how to communicate with each other. And I think we're realizing that as adults right now that some kids just don't have those strengths. And so we're going to help them and teach them how to communicate, be accountable, but then also build relationships within themselves, and then with peers around them and also their adults in the classroom. And through this, they work through 4 rotations, which we'll go over here in a little bit, where it consists of the mini lesson, independent, digital, and 5 C's. And so students are progressing through this and kind of self-regulating themselves through a check, check, done, which you guys have, and we will go over here shortly.
So there's 3 foundational pieces to our model. We really focus on that small group instruction and putting those systems in place so that the teacher has that time to have that direct instruction while the students are self-managing that learning space. We talk a lot about the learning environment, and we'll get into all of these in a minute, but we also talk about setting up that learning environment so that it's safe for our students and they're feeling comfortable taking the ownership of their learning, but then also those relationships within the classroom. And finally, we have our car, which we'll explain, where students are really the drivers of their car and taking that ownership and having those relationships. All right, so I'm going to talk about small group instruction and what that looks like in the innovative learning model. So as I said, there are 4 rotations: mini lesson, independent, digital content, and 5 C's. So I'm going to start with 5 C's. So that is critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication, and you may have heard of those as the 4 C's. We realized that we needed a 5th C, which is connections, because no longer does school take place in 4 walls. We are now global, so we need to connect amongst Linn-Mar, class to class, and then globally. So this is a time where students are having experiences, hands-on activities. They might be going on a field trip virtually, talking with other people, but really working together to create a project to show their learning. Digital content. We are one-to-one, which is great, but thinking of how often students just get home and they're on a device, we don't want that to be the Linn-Mar way. So our tagline is to use technology in collaboration, not isolation. So in some pictures you will see that they will be at one computer together, so they are really connecting with one another. Independent practice. So there are ways that students are able to practice the skills that were previously taught at their level. We can accommodate this. We can have accommodations where maybe a student needs highlighted of what to do that day, so we can highlight that. It's also on the check, check, done. It's also a communication tool that students can say, oh, this was green, I was able to do this independently. It's yellow, I need some help, or red, I need a lot of help with this task. So also it can be a modification as well, thinking about all of our students, that if there's a student with a goal area for their independent practice, that might be from their special education classroom, because the more that we can do while they are in class, the better it is for all students. And then mini lesson, this is directed by the teacher, so the teacher is explicitly teaching the students during this rotation. So through this is the check, check, done, which if you had an online learner last year, a lot of our teachers use this check, check, done, so it's good for any environment. But students have some voice and choice throughout, so they might choose one of the 5 C's activities.
They know they have to work with at least one other person. The mini lesson is usually standard based, the teacher's directing, and then the 5 Cs, they have options of when they complete that. So once they get it done, they check it off. The difference between a choice board and a check done is I'm checking it off, I'm getting it done. Choice board, I have a choice. So sometimes after the check done, the students will have a choice board that they can go off of. So the whole point of this rotations is we don't want kids just to go to school to be good at school. We want kids to go to school to be good at life. So this is what that is teaching them.
And you guys have an example of the check done in front of you. This is from a 3rd grade classroom. So you can see where the standards are all aligned to those activities. And we'll talk about the back of that as well to kind of show more of that accountability for students in just a second.
And if you want to look at those pictures up there, the bottom one was a king's bath. This was 6th grade social studies. They made the water go up and down. I don't know how, but they did. They're going to be millionaires someday. And the other one is from an FCS class. It is sewing. So there's that as well.
And then, oh, it's fine. Nope, I was going to say the one on the bottom, they're working together on an Excel sheet, coming up with their math problems, and then as they answer it correctly, it colors in, so then they know if they got it right or wrong. But they're collaborating and they're working together, which was really cool to see. All right, so I'm going to talk about the learning environment. So with the learning environment, with the innovative learning model, what we have realized is that we really need to kind of redesign our environment. Traditional classroom sitting in desks all the time for hours on hours is kind of changed. We really need to kind of provide that flexible seating, and unfortunately with COVID we had to take it away, but now we're slowly starting to see it come back into the classrooms, which is great because flexible seating really just gives the students kind of that autonomy and the comfort to stay engaged. And research shows that if there's increased student engagement, it's linked to higher motivation and then obviously higher academic performance, which is what we want to see in the classrooms. I also bring up the example when we go to Starbucks. Rachel probably wants to sit in a chair and table, and I want to sit curled up in a couch with my computer. But that's the best way that we learn, and we need to make sure that we provide that for our students as well. Along with the flexible seating, each rotation also has its own designated area. So kids are getting up and moving from rotation to rotation, which Sam had brought up the example of it being done in a 6th grade classroom, and when we asked what's the favorite thing about the innovative learning model, they said just moving. So we want to really kind of restructure that learning environment for them. And then lastly, we also have just visuals. The more visuals we can have in the classrooms, the better. So you see up there, we have just the visual rotation with a timer, so students can kind of self-regulate as they are doing their activities and learning. And then there's a transitional timer that really just shows them, like, you need to clean up, this is where you need to go next, and then you have about 1 minute to get that done. So.
Okay, so like Sam and Shanna were saying about all the procedures and structures that are put into place within the environment. One thing that we were finding that we really needed was this CAR. Having students be the drivers of their learning and their relationships. CAR stands for communication, accountability, and relationships. And like the examples that we showed previously, having those structures and visuals in place, you are allowing the students to navigate that learning environment independently. We know that when something is said negatively to a child, it takes 5 positive interactions to counteract that. What's nice about having the visuals is they're no longer coming to the teacher and having asking those questions and having that be taken out of their emotional bank when the teacher's placing a demand or a question on them. They're able to do it themselves and have that self-management. Another piece of the CAR is providing the opportunities for students to build those relationships throughout the day where they're communicating with each other. I know Sam was talking a lot about collaboration, but strategically and systematically putting those in place throughout the day so that they're continuing to build up those positive relationships with each other so they can rely on each other while the teacher's in that direct instruction. Working on the accountability piece with students, we work with anyone from JK to 8th grade in this cohort, and teaching elementary students to set goals for themselves and take ownership with that learning is very highly motivating for them. Setting up those accountability buddies where on the back of your check done you can see a goal setting sheet on what that could look like. They set that goal on how many activities they want to accomplish in their independent time. They color code with how many they were able to accomplish, and then they're meeting with somebody else to reflect and see what they need to do behavior-wise to change and get that work done. But that's coming from each other and peers, and that's so much stronger than a teacher standing up and saying, you need to do this, you need to do this. They really build that relationship and that accountability for themselves. And then finally, just having those relationships that are peer-to-peer within themselves as students, with themselves, and then having that peer-to-adult relationship as well as a huge part of our CAR piece. These are just some examples of things that we've implemented in the cohort and we've seen throughout our day, like having the posted schedule for students to refer to, the systematic buddies that they pair up with, the teachers pairing up that stronger social student with a student that might need more support in that so they can learn from each other. The disagreement chart, where what do we do when we have a disagreement? Teaching them those skills young so that when they are older, they're able to do that. Brain Buddy Buddies here on the left, where we've really given students that autonomy to check with themselves first, then go to a peer, and then another peer before they're seeking that adult guidance. That's not a right fact. I was going to say 90% of the time students that we've worked with are able to figure it out with themselves. They just need that reassurance from somebody else. Another thing with that goal sheet that we have up here, this is an older version for older students where they have like a wildly important goal that they're setting and then they're able to track that as well. I was going to say, I think there's a lot on that slide.
So, like Rachel mentioned, we had the opportunity to do a cohort. So we were both classroom teachers. Shanna was our coach. We were spending a lot of time. Carol was our principal. She allowed us to start implementing this into our classrooms. And we got to the point where we're spending so much time on this, we need to meet with Nathan and Bob and see if this is worth our time. So they said yes, which was great. And we were able to start a cohort. And I was going on maternity leave, so we were like, we need to cap this somewhere. At first, I was like, yeah, let's just put it out to the district. Well, good thing we didn't. This was organic growth. We had a TQSA class in the fall where many of these people came from, and they wanted to be a part of it. We increased our cohort by like 8 people than what we thought. And this is just our cohort. What you will see if you go around to the different buildings is it's organically grown in the buildings as well. So we have some coaches involved. It's being implemented in 7 buildings across the district. And as you can see, we now have junior kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. 8th grade was not our intention. We were going to stop at 6th. 8th grade teachers attended our TQ class, and we're like, sure, why not? Let's check with Nathan and Bob and see if that's okay. So it's really cool to see because we have FCS, social studies, we have a flipped math classroom, we have junior kindergarten. So it's kind of anything and everything in between. Throughout the process, they had to attend 4 classes with us throughout the year. And then we went in and took engagement data, which we'll get to that. But also, this is the stuff, you guys have this as well. This is the level 1. These are the parts in place. So the innovative learning model, we say it's not a program, it's a process. The structures and foundations are there, but how teachers have taken it has really evolved in weekly. The pictures you see are constantly changing. So these pictures are from even the last few weeks. So teachers have really taken this and they have all those structures. So you might see a progression board or those timers, but it will look different depending on which classroom you're in. So those are how teachers would be certified in level 1. We have 3 levels of the innovative learning model, and this was our level 1 basis.
So like Sam said, we really wanted to collect data, just is it actually working? We do think it's a great thing, but we need to really prove that it's working. And so we luckily have been able to go into the classrooms and take student engagement data, and we use it based off Schlechty's levels of engagement. And so on the next slide, you will see the blue is the fall. So the teachers, their student engagement, we just went in, and the students who were not meeting with the teacher, we said, were they authentically engaged? So they're really into what they're doing, and they're talking about it, and they're having great conversations. Strategically compliant, I like to call them our kids who play school. They look like they're engaged, but they're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then you're completely not engaged, and we all know some of those kids, and they are just up and moving around and talking and chit-chatting and all of that. So we have our baseline data in fall,
And then you can see our spring data, and in every single classroom it increased, which was great to see. I mean, it's really important. We want to point out that student engagement is huge. Because it plays an important role in students achieving higher grades. And some teachers, we know that there is some student disengagement, and we want to really bring that engagement back into the classroom, and how can we do that? And so with the innovative learning model, we've seen that it has been successful doing that. So
our next steps that we're looking at, because it did exceed our expectations, we're working on level 2 for teachers who are wanting to extend from level 1 this year. We're looking for level 1 again with teachers in our K-8 classrooms, and we've also been collaborating with the coaches at the high school, and we're looking at starting a cohort in the high school as well. So that's what we're looking forward to next year with the cohort. We have the opportunity to present at SAI in August as well, so that'll be coming up for us. Yeah, so just a lot of exciting things that are in our future. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Yeah, I do. On one of the slides, you had, it was in the upper right-hand corner, team leaders.
Yeah.
Now, do the students get an opportunity to rotate through so they all get a chance to be a leader if they want to?
it isn't earned. It's something that is earned. So it's a privilege until it's not. We talk about that a lot. Like, it's a privilege, you can sit where you want until it's not a privilege anymore. So there are team leaders who may be a team leader, and maybe, like, kind of real world, like, you're not doing your job, I'm sorry, but this person is, so now this other person is team leader. Hopefully you can earn that back. We've also had to have some teaching with that. Like, just because Rachel's my friend, I'm not giving her green. Like, we have to teach that. So we've had, like, the teacher, where the teacher, it's green, yellow, red, and they have, like, they learn how to be a team leader and how to encourage. Also, like, the disagreement chart, they can send people to the disagreement chart, because disagreements we were finding were lasting, like, the whole rotation. Well, now you have 30 seconds and then it's squashed and you guys move on. You might not always get your first choice. So team leaders, we have started implementing at kindergarten as well, so that looks very different than 6th grade. But yeah, that's another one that has really evolved. It started with this, and now it looks a lot different based on which classroom you're seeing it.
What are the potential applications that you see as you transition this into high school, and how will this look different?
Go ahead. Okay, so this is kind of funny too. So we were just talking about it at teacher leadership. High school teachers came to us. So we went on the professional learning day, and we're like, oh my gosh, like, what will this look like? Well, the room was filled, and we did have lots of questions, and we had lots of people who were very interested. We also had, like, a sign up that somebody did sign up for. So there are some teachers there doing blended learning. That's kind of where we started, but blended learning based on which school you're talking to or classroom can look very different. So a lot of these teachers, what we have found when we present this, they're like, well, I'm doing that, and I'm doing that, and then we're expected to do this. So we have tried to make this one comprehensive model. So for them, it's kind of like I can do this now, instead of like, I have to do this and this and this. It's just one piece. So seeing it with high school, I know, like, rotations might not be at the forefront of a high school classroom, but they're seeing, like, oh, I can. So with that FCS class in 8th grade, what she has seen is, like, behaviors have gone down, and now she's moving through more content. She's like, I'm in 4th quarter, you would expect behaviors to kind of rise. Behaviors are down, and she's like, I can do more because they've moved through this. So just seeing the successes with that, but collaboration amongst those high school teachers too, because it is by content. They're seeing, like, I can bring writing into my reading, or I can bring reading into my social studies. So seeing some of those collaborative conversations happening at the high school.
And a lot of the relationship piece too. When we met with the high school coaches, that was the first thing that they said was, our high school students need to be explicitly taught how to have conversations that are really strong and have those 4 exchanges back and forth. And so I think we're at whatever age, a lot of it is just setting those procedures up and walking them through the structure so that students are completely aware of the expectations and just have those clear routines and structures.
I see in your diagram here, you've got it laid out, your 5 C's, your digital, mini lessons, independent, and you explained CAR. I see SEL there. I'm assuming that's social emotional learning. How does that brought in with this, and what does that look like?
So some of the social emotional learning, like classrooms have, right now it's OCM or Leader in Me. So they might have a social emotional focus for the week. So if they have their meeting on Wednesdays, then that focus of whatever that learning might be taken through the rotations. So I know you worked on some social emotional lessons. I won't give an exact example.
Yeah, I can talk at the elementary. So we implemented Super Kids this year. And so taking those lasting lessons that were in Super Kids, which are all social emotional pieces, and creating conversation topics for our students to have, and then putting that into not only conversation buddies throughout the day, but pairing those same conversation buddies up during that check done, so they're continuing that relationship and that collaboration with academics. So starting with the social emotional piece as a foundation, and then transferring it to those harder academic conversations. Is one way that we've done it.
Really impressed to see, we talk about being lifelong learners, and it's always very interesting for me to watch education evolve and thinking about what it looked like, when we were going to school, and how, the more time that goes on, we are really thinking, about how we can incorporate all kids. How do we reach all kids? And, I think all kids want to be successful, even the ones that you don't think they do. But of course, it's a part of being a human being, to be successful and to, make the adults proud and make ourselves proud. I love that, I love the way that we are seeing more of a incorporation of students into their own learning. And, it really, we think about motivation and, how can we motivate them intrinsically, right? Because there's not always going to be these, extrinsic, that's right, motivations. That's just not how life is. It's like, you're not going to get a lollipop for doing things. You're going to get fired if you don't, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm really impressed with this, as I think it works. And I think that it really works in bringing in those kids who may not believe that they can be successful. And when we do that early on, we're really setting the path for them, the stage for them. So, thank you guys for all that you do, and I really appreciated your presentation, and keep it up.
Thanks.
I was going to make, I don't have a question for you, but I just was going to make a comment, and since Mrs. O'Donnell's here as well,
yeah.
I was going to make the comment at the Novak session, but I want to make it now. It's been, for me personally, it's been so gratifying with all the garbage going on the last few months that we've been able to go into classrooms, and we've watched these youngsters and watching the collaboration of the teachers, of the staff. I know Grant Wood was there one day when we sat in on a math session. Mm-hmm. But just to watch the youngsters and the children and just the excitement and the fun that they're having. And I think I'll echo what Rachel said, nobody's getting lost here. You're trying to pull everybody together, pull everybody along. And it's just gratifying because we've been in Novak, we've been in Wilkins, we've been in Indian Creek, and it's just so, seriously, it's so fun to watch the staff and the excitement in the staff and the excitement in the children, so thank you.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
All I can say is thank you for all you do. After years of teaching, I realize you're on track with many, many good things. So thank you for caring and pushing through and identifying it to our other leaders, and to be able to push it on through the high school with some great ideas. So thank you.
Thank you
guys.
Hey, you guys did just a phenomenal job, because you get to see the big thing is that everybody's involved. Mm-hmm. They're not separated. So you have that really shy student, an introvert, and you bring them out of being an introvert. And I think that is so positive, because by the time they get to the high school, the eye contact, how to solve differences, and those types of things. If it's not practiced, then you get there and you just don't know.
Yep.
You know, and if they don't, then they go back into their shell and just, you know, follow along. But this program that has been created, you know, is so very positive in so many different ways, because you've covered the academics, you've covered the social, and you're covering the mental. And you're taking somebody that maybe not have a whole bunch of confidence to making them a confident person, and I am worth it. Okay? I have a mind, I have ideas, and my ideas, you know, should be heard just like everybody else. And thank you so very, very much, because as Sandra and Rachel have pointed out, from when I was teaching to this, how things has evolved. You know, there was a time that you'd have professional development, and then the next year you had another professional development, but it was more of the same, just with a different name. Okay? This is completely different than that. And I can't think of anything bad about it, because everything is positive. And I think with some of the families that we have, you know, sometimes that kid, he comes to school and maybe that's the best, most positive thing that has happened to him.
Definitely.
Because a lot of people don't understand that when they come through that door, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school, and they come in and go to their first class, there's a lot of kids carrying a lot of baggage. And you get into the lower levels, they don't know how to handle that baggage. And I think this program is going to help them. That they could come in the morning and have a smile on their face and have looks people in their eye and, hey, I'm ready to see what's happening today. But I think if you talk, there's some alumni here that understand that, yes, it is different, because there is baggage, and those little ones carry it, and this program is going to help them immensely. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I just have 2 questions, but I'll be quick.
No, you're fine.
So right now it's this cohort, and it's growing on its own, which is great. Is the ultimate goal to make this like readily available to every teacher? And I mean, is that the ultimate goal, to have it everywhere?
Look at Nathan.
I can look at Nathan too.
Honestly, I mean, we've seen such great things that, yeah, like whoever wants to do it, we're more than happy. And we luckily have a lot of our coaches who are on board, and we're getting on board and wanting to just get it out to the classrooms. But one thing we have found, if you let it grow organically, it does grow. But if you tell, and I'm the same way, if you tell me to do something, I'll be like, probably not. But if I'm interested in doing it and I find benefit from it, then I'm going to have more buy-in. So that's why we've kind of had it just be kind of word by mouth. Like if some teachers are doing it, and they're like, yeah, we're doing this great thing. And then they come and talk to their coaches and stuff, and we're able to help have coaching conversations with them and kind of come in and co-teach models. So yeah, eventually I would personally love to see it in every classroom. But
The engagement data where you showed every classroom, no matter where they started, went up. How does that engagement data correlate to their standards proficiency work?
So we are, well, standards in the classroom, I guess I can't speak directly for that, but we are looking at NWA data, growth data for NWA at the 5th, 6th grade. And then we're going to look at FAST data too, because the thought is with engagement data, or with engagement, then those scores will go up. We do have a teacher here that has implemented, so I don't know if you have anything with your standards. I know when I did it in my classroom, it was, for me, I used, I had mixed groups, so I never had like a low group, and we all know like, oh, you're the Lions, you're in the low group. So what I did is I mixed my groups, and I was able to use text that was the same content but at different levels. And from what I saw personally, like now, Rachel might be the lowest and Shanna's the highest. They're in the same group and they're able to have an academic conversation. The culture in my classroom that year was the best I've ever seen, because they truly had an academic conversation. So the scores that I saw, darn COVID, because I was really excited for my FAFSA scores that year, Carol, because my mid-year FAFSA scores were the best I've ever seen. Like, it was crazy growth, but I think it's because all students felt like they could do it, and they, like you said, they were worth it. So like with Hattie's effect sizes, 0.4 is a typical year. I would think that teacher, like the goals that teachers have would be most effective, but it's really the student, and that's a 1.6. So when students have high expectations for themselves, and I saw that grow amongst my students, their scores went up. So that's our hope with that.
Will you be doing analysis between the classrooms that are implementing this and those that aren't to compare the test scores and the engagement differences?
We have done a little bit at the fall to winter FAFSA scores. It's really hard to say like this is it, but we have like NWA that we're taking currently. So like for the math classroom, we're gonna see that classroom compared, because like winter math, like yes, that was like a big increase for her, but definitely growth, not just on who hits proficiency, because that's our main goal is growth.
I could continue asking questions, but I'm going to stop.
Well, you can come in with us anytime.
I know, whatever you want. I'm really curious about the independent learning, self-management part, because I've seen it work really well, but then I also have questions for the kids that aren't self-starters and who would just be like, I'm going to spend independent time just sitting at my desk, and oh, I forgot to do that when it's time to rotate to the next thing. So I could just talk to you all night.
I will say one thing though, like we have a second grade classroom that's doing this, and she has 2 stories. I'll say real quick and then I'm gonna be done. But with the check done, we have one girl that literally, when she gets it on Monday, she puts it in order of how she wants to do it, and she's super excited about it. And then we have another student who is in student support, and his parents had said, like, can we get a copy of this check done, because he wants it at home. Like, he just constantly is talking about, oh, I have to get my check done, and then he has it even one at home that I think they're gonna start doing as well. So just, again, that independence. But yeah, we do have some slow starters, and we have some ways to work around that, so.
Well, thank you. I think that there's a lot of potential in the program. I'm interested to come back next year and tell us more.
Yeah.
And I really could come just hang out with you guys for a while, and we'll just have
You
all
can,
kinds
you're
of
more than
chats.
welcome. Anyone's welcome to come hang out with us.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda, Governor Reynolds and Representative Hinson paid Marion a visit last week, and I think there's just some questions. So I'm going to open it with, I've gotten a lot of questions, Shannon and I have, from the media, from community members. Why weren't we there? Did the district know? Were we invited? So I think that's a good place to start. I did not know. I was not invited. We weren't given a heads up. Shannon, no district administration?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess I just want to kind of check with everyone. Who was invited? Barry?
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Was.
Okay, so Matt, can you just give us an overview of, I think we just want to know, kind of clear the air, what happened?
Sure, absolutely. The meeting was, as I said, I got an invitation for it. It started out to be what was called a round table of, I don't know how large the group was, how small the group was, but shortly after I got the invitation, it started making the rounds on social media. Someone had shared the invitation, and people just started RSVPing to it. I went to the meeting. It was 11:30 Wednesday, and I spoke to one of the staffers regarding it, and she mentioned to me that there was such an interest that they just decided to make it from a smaller group to just allow anyone who RSVP'd to it to attend up into the capacity of the room, which was about 100 to 115. I don't know what the room holds. And what it was very much the exact same thing that we heard here in our last board meeting with public comments. It was concerned parents mostly regarding the 2 policies, 13 and 13R. There were a few other community members from around the area, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City. But it was very much so parents voicing concerns regarding the policy to the governor and to Representative Hinson.
So in the governor's remarks on, I forget, KCRG, she said the meeting was primarily about school vouchers and her scholarship bill.
Absolutely was not. There were about, in my estimation, 40 or so speakers, and I would say 95% of those were concerns that we all heard here a few weeks ago regarding the policy. The voucher bill, if that's what we call it, was brought up, but it was not the main focus of the meeting. It was brought up by parents who were concerned that they feel stuck, if you will, and wondering how that bill is moving forward and if that is going to be an option. It was not at all, in my estimation, the point of the meeting at all.
How was the purpose of the meeting advertised? Was it advertised as a meeting about Linn-Mar and about this policy in the invitation?
I have the invitation right here, actually. I can read it. This is the invitation I received. It says, good afternoon. Governor Reynolds would like to invite you to attend a roundtable discussion regarding the Linn-Mar School District next Wednesday, May 4th at 11:30. The discussion will be held at the Safe Room at Thomas Park. Attached is a map and location of the Safe Room and where to park. The event will be closed to press and is meant to give the governor an opportunity to hear directly from parents in the community. Please RSVP by this date. And that came from a staffer. So the invitation clearly is for feedback from parents. One thing that was mentioned in the meeting by the governor was that, and I feel it's the reason it happened in the first place, it's the take I took from this comment was that the governor's office was flooded with phone calls from concerned Linn-Mar community members regarding this policy. So much so that she couldn't ignore it. And I think that's how it got started. How anyone got invited, I don't know that information. I have no idea how my name got on that list or anyone else's name got on that list. And I never asked, I never had a chance to speak to the governor one-on-one. I had to leave prior to the final comments because the meeting ran longer than it was intended to, and I had another obligation I had to get to, so I did not get to stick around for any comments from the governor or Representative Hinson at all. So, and I didn't get a chance to speak with her one-on-one, either of them one-on-one.
Was the invitation by email or on social media?
Mine was by email, but again, shortly after I got my invitation, it was spreading around social media, and that was the invitation everyone was RSVPing to, is the same invitation that I received.
Did you get that?
Receive that through your school board email or
No,
your personal
through my
email?
personal email.
That was my question, was which email?
Did you speak at the meeting at all?
I did. I did not speak on behalf of the board. I did not speak to any policy regarding any policy, anything at Linn-Mar. My remarks were purely thanking the governor for coming and thanking the community for coming, and also Congressman or Congresswoman Hinson for being there and listening to concerned parents. That was the extent of my conversation.
Did you identify yourself as a private citizen and not there as a school board member?
I very specifically said I am here speaking on my own behalf.
My concern is not that the meeting was held or that parents were able to talk to the governor. That's the governor's choice, that's fine. But if you got an email inviting you to a meeting that specifically said it was with regards to the district and you didn't tell any of us, that's the part that gets sketchy to me, because we're not supposed to have surprises We're supposed to share information concerning the district. And that's in our guidelines, it's in our ethics. So a heads up, so that the first time we heard about the meeting wasn't when the media was asking us to comment on it and asking us what it was about, would have been nice. Would have been
Understand that.
appropriate, would have been a professional courtesy, would have been a respectful thing to do. Some could even say would have been a responsibility to uphold your code of ethics that you've agreed to just let us know. The audience will remain quiet or you will be asked to leave the room.
And we've had that conversation, and you know, right or wrong, if I felt that I needed to, I would have. If I get invited to a governor's meeting again, you will know. Let's put it that way. This, I didn't. I didn't have much of a part in it. Let's say it that way. Again, I was there listening to concerns of parents, just like we did a few weeks ago. There were a few new concerns that I hadn't heard of that I think are relative, maybe, and we can have a discussion on that, I suppose. But as it's been told to me, the policy is passed and it is there, so we need to move on, is what I was told. But I think this...
Told by whom?
By Brett. I think that this happened is... how do I want to say it? There's still enough concern out there that this took place. So...
Like I said, I'm not disputing the governor's right to have a meeting with parents or for parents to speak with the governor. The meeting is hers, but when the governor of the state of Iowa invites you to a meeting about the district for which you serve on the board, regardless of whether you attend as a concerned parent or as a community member or just a listener, you are a board member. You may not be speaking on behalf of the board, but when you walked out of that building, you were identified as a board member, and instantly people wanted to know, were you there representing the district? Did the district know about this? Why weren't any of the rest of us there to hear these concerns, to meet with the governor, to hear the governor talk about our district? That's a responsibility you have, whether you're there as a board member or not, to inform at a minimum myself and Shannon so that we can be prepared for those conversations, because off her public record or not, if it's not on her agenda or not, when the governor goes somewhere, people notice. And if it's about our district, people are going to start asking questions because it's the governor. So we should have been informed.
Fair enough. I will say this, even though I was not in there in my official capacity, every single member of the community that reached out to me, I answered. I gave them the same explanation I just gave you. I'm not hiding anything.
I'm not accusing you of hiding anything. I didn't say you were hiding anything. I just said it would have been more responsible and following our guidelines for you to tell us the governor's coming to town and specifically to talk about our district.
Can I add to?
Yeah, that was my big...
Yeah, whether you were there, or whether you felt that you were there as a parent or not, everybody that was at that meeting saw you as a school board representative, including, you know, Representative Hinson, including the governor. So by being there, you know, there's just, we can never fully bifurcate our roles as school board member and as parent or community member. If you are interacting with, you know, members of the district, or you're at a meeting that the express purpose is to discuss district business, then you are there as a school board member, and you can't just say, oh, you know, I was there as a parent. It doesn't work like that. And I mean, it talks about that in our manual, that people will always see you as a school board member no matter what. And I'll just go on the record as saying that, like, I think your attendance was completely inappropriate.
I have I just have a couple questions too, Matt. I'm not here, I echo what Britt said. I'm not going to make those comments again. But this meeting was held. Did you, did anybody get the answers that we wanted? Did we learn anything? No, that's one question.
Like I said, I didn't get the end statements, if there were statements made, but no. There was no answers as to anything that's going to be done. I think she was looking for what are the concerns of the community. And I think that's what the community gave her, was the concerns that she was looking for. She didn't say, well, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. Not at all. She did ask questions of some of the people that were explaining to her their concerns. And she seemed genuinely interested in the concerns of the community. But no, there were no answers as to what was going to be done or anything like that, no.
Was there any discussion, and was there any discussion about other school districts putting the same stuff in their policy? Because we're putting in basically some verbiage to add to Title IX. I mean, that's what we're really doing.
There was discussion on, like I said, I remember someone discussing some Cedar Rapids policy or what some of the things they're doing there. And I know there was someone from Iowa City. They may have been a representative or running for a representative. I don't recall for sure. But not specifically to this policy as it's the same in their districts, no. Not that I recall, anyway.
You know, I guess I'll go on record and make this statement, so I have to be careful, but I do support Governor Reynolds and I do support Ashley Hinson. But I can honestly say I was just a little bit disappointed to see a private meeting by invite only. And I'm just saying that as a statement. I might regret saying that, but that's just how I feel in my heart, because I didn't find out till 8 o'clock that night that this meeting was held. And, you know, and a few people contacted me and were surprised that I wasn't invited. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong either way. I'm not saying I should have or shouldn't have. That's not the whole issue here, but it just surprises me that we pick or choose who we want. And that's not on your shoulders, who we pick or choose to come to a meeting. And that's probably my biggest disappointment through this whole process. So.
Right, and to be completely honest with you, Barry, I was surprised that you weren't either. I didn't know till right now that you weren't. I don't know who all had a specific invite to it, how they got the list of names on who. I don't know. I never asked, and I wasn't ever told. Governor Reynolds' phone number is there. We can call and find out, I suppose. But I guess bottom line, I went to hear more of my constituents on concerns that they have.
I wonder, you said you were surprised that Barry was not invited. Were you surprised that the rest of us were not invited?
I am, actually. I am.
Oh, okay. So when nobody was there then, how come you didn't reach out to anybody to ask? Like, if your expectation going into the meeting was that, everybody would have received a invitation, and then you get to the meeting and you're the only one there, Shannon's not there, Britt's not there, nobody else is there, why not reach out?
I didn't feel it was my place to invite someone to a meeting that I was invited to.
Well, according to you, hang on one second. According to a couple things, because according to you, you said you put it out on social media.
I
And
did not put it out on social media. I did not.
I believe. Oh, well, I thought that's what you had said earlier.
I did not.
But even not to invite us, I'm not suggesting that you should have invited us. But you knew that it was from my understanding, like, even though you didn't put it out on social media, it had gone out on social media and people had been invited. But even if you hadn't invited us, I mean, I do find it a little strange then that if you thought that we, this was like an equal opportunity thing, that you wouldn't have reached out to anybody afterward to say, hey, what happened? Why weren't you there?
Well, I can liken that to, that happened Wednesday and everyone found out on Wednesday, and this is the first time anyone's asking me questions about it as well.
Well, I mean, I think that we were just, over here minding our business. We haven't done anything to surprise anybody. So, I mean, I kind of think that the onus is on you as the person who did attend the meeting to, figure out what happened. Because I'll be honest, it does come across a little underhanded, and I really worry that some of the things that you're doing, like in this situation, really undermined the institution of the school board.
What things am I doing?
I mean, there have been other things that have really pushed the envelope, but I think this in particular, I mean, I'm sorry, you just shouldn't have been there, and
I think it's good. It's good I was there, Rachel. I can tell you what happened. I can tell everyone here what happened, exactly what happened. We had 40 people, much like I said, much like the meeting 2 weeks ago, and they had a receptive audience.
They had a receptive audience when they were here last time. We spent 3 hours plus listening to everybody's concerns, Matt. Nobody was cut off. We didn't limit comments. We gave everybody a fair opportunity to have their opinions heard. So it seems like, that meeting was really redundant and really just meant to create sort of an echo chamber, because it was only one side of comments. I mean, you say I was there to hear my constituents, but you didn't hear all your constituents. You heard a certain portion of your constituents who feel a certain way, but you didn't hear from other constituents in the district who feel differently. So it's it does, whether you meant for it or not, I mean, it does send a message about who you're really listening to, and I think it was really unfortunate. I really do, and I think that you knew better. I think you did know better.
You're entitled to your opinion, and I hear you, and I respect your opinion.
I think my concern is not as much that there was a meeting that a school board member attended, as much as how it went about. Had you received an invitation that said, hey, we'd like for you to come to this meeting that's by invitation only, discussing concerns about Linn-Mar Community School District, and you said, gosh, I'm going to call Shannon and the board president and discuss and determine who the most appropriate person would be to attend this, at least let them know that this is happening, and for us to determine who should be representing the district at this meeting, and for us to be able to have that discussion as a board. I think then we could have had a fair representation there to hear the community's concerns. But by you doing that and operating in isolation, it's the how that then becomes a concern for me in terms of our policies. So I'm just going to read you a couple things that I pulled out when I was trying to think about why this was so bothersome to me. So in our policy, ideal boardsmanship 202.2, it says, one of the expectations is encourage and respect free expression of opinions by all board members and seek systematic communications between the board, superintendent, and constituents in the community, and take no private action that will compromise the board or administration. Code of Ethics 202.1, give the superintendent power commensurate with the superintendent's responsibility and will not in any way interfere with or seek to undermine the superintendent's authority, and give the superintendent friendly counsel and advice. I don't feel like you not notifying the superintendent or not giving us the opportunity to be part of that conversation is fulfilling those duties. And so I'd be interested to hear your perspective on how you feel like you were fulfilling those duties by attending this without involving or having that previous conversation with us.
Sure. To be 100% clear, and I mentioned this to Britt in an email that we had, that I was, or maybe it was a phone call, I was there as a parent, and my rights as a parent don't go away because I'm on this board, okay? And I honestly, I'm here sharing all of this information, everything I have, everything that came out of that meeting. I'm sharing everything with everyone here. I'm not hiding anything.
That's not the point.
Well, it really is.
No, but it really is not. I appreciate that you've come in and shared that information, but the point is that your attendance there sent a very clear message, and that message was in opposition to the work that this board as a group has done.
Absolutely not. I spoke
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, how? I can, just like Barry, I can support Governor Reynolds if I want to support Governor Reynolds, or I can support anyone else.
This isn't about who we support.
So what conflict of interest are we talking about then?
If Barry had received that invitation, he wouldn't have gone. He would have understood that that was a no-no.
Not even
Are you speaking for Barry?
I don't think he would have gone.
I think we better probably close this discussion, but I would like to make one comment, if you don't mind. The issue that we have, Matt, is that you went there as a private citizen, but every news article and every clip that we saw said Matt Rollinger, board member that voted against this policy, was in attendance. And that's the challenge that we have. And if I would have attended it, it would have been the same thing. But that's the challenge we have, because we do represent Linn-Mar Community School District. And basically, no matter what I do on the street, no matter who I see, that's who I am. I am a Linn-Mar school board member, and I'm proud of that. And basically, no matter how hard we try to go incognito or whatever the word is, that's still who we are.
I understand that, but it is also not my responsibility for what someone else puts out.
When you learn about it, it becomes your responsibility to share that information. I can't speak for Barry, but I can say that when he did find out about the meeting, I was his first phone call. Can you tell me what happened today? What do you know about this meeting? Did we know about it?
I sent you the text.
Yeah, it was a text message. But so if Barry had been invited, I could probably take that same course of action, and I would have been his first or second phone call. If I was his second phone call, it would be because Shannon was his first. Because that is the responsibility we have as members of this board, as representatives of this district. Yes, you are always going to have your right as a parent, and I'm not going to tell you you don't. But you are a board member, whether you say I'm here as a board member or not. When you're sitting in a room talking about Linn-Mar, you're a board member. Even if you don't say anything, you're a board member, and you're going to be looked at as a board member. And the news is going to report it as a board member, just like Barry just said. We all have to accept that when we take this position, that we have elevated ourselves above an ordinary citizen, and we have responsibilities that come with that. And I think what we're all just asking you is to live up to that responsibility and be more inclusive. Follow our guidelines, follow the ethics you've agreed to. When something comes up that is about the district, we need to know about it. If you're the only one invited, that's fine. You come, you tell us about the meeting. I'm thankful that you did that tonight. But we should have at least had a heads up that this meeting was going to happen, even if we weren't invited. Shannon and I spent a lot of time Wednesday afternoon fielding questions and trying to figure out what happened today. We shouldn't have been in that position because you could have prevented that.
Again, I could have helped with that if you would have reached out to me.
Yeah, that is such a cop-out.
No, it's not,
We're not
Rachel.
going to argue about it. We've all said our piece.
let's-
We're not arguing about.
I have one statement to say there, though. But this shows exactly how things are. It's tough to communicate back and forth sometimes. It's very tough to communicate back and forth sometimes. I've given it my level best, especially very early on. Had lots of phone conversations. It's not very easy to do that. And feel like, I don't even want to say feel. I know that my words maybe don't go very far. It's a futile battle, if you will. And I agree. I have to work on it. I do. But I'm not the only one here that does. And that's where I'm going to leave it.
I'm just going to make a small statement. I think, Matt, you were kind of surprised that the rest of us weren't there. I think you made that statement. One, the governor, that wasn't even on her schedule. She's got a schedule, and the press pointed that out in several different ways, that it was not on her usual agenda. With that being said, where most of us were, 2 people were at work. The rest of us were at the Medco annual luncheon, which you were also invited to go to, which came out well in advance. Gayla had sent out because she wanted to count, the district wanted to count on who's going to be there. On the very day, there was another memo sent out on who had notified her that we're going to be there. Those that weren't were asked, hey, if you still want to go. So that's where the rest of us were. We were sitting in there with, I don't know, 300 people or something like that at this Medco thing that we were invited to. A lot of business, many businesses were there. Linn-Mar student venture program was there and gave a nice talk, and the students at Marion gave a nice talk, and then a bunch of businesses. And then all of a sudden, one of us got a text, do you know anything about, this meeting? And we all looked at each other and they said, what meeting are you talking about? Well, hey, the press is telling us that Governor Reynolds is here. It's a closed meeting and none of us knew about it. So that's my perspective on that. You knew where we were because you were also invited to that meeting. You chose not to go, which is fine. That's fine. We can't go to everything. But when you said earlier tonight, hey, I was kind of surprised not to see the rest of you there. Well, the reason why the rest of us weren't there is because we're at the meeting at Medco, which went out in the memo, okay, who was going and who had not signed up yet. So, 1, you were invited. 2, you chose not to go. That's fine. No big deal. You can't go to everything. But when you said, I was surprised not to see anybody else, well, the reason you were surprised is because we were invited and we were at the Medco meeting sitting there. So that's all.
I think that's a great transition, because that's next up on our agenda. I think everyone has said what they need to say. I do thank you for giving us a summary. I think it's important that we know what happened at the meeting, and I would hope that in the future more of us would be invited. So like I said, Clark gave us a great transition to the next item, the Medco annual luncheon. There were several of us that were able to attend last Wednesday. Does anyone want to share their thoughts or perspectives on at lunch.
Well, I thought it was a great meeting. It was a little soggy being underneath that tent. To be quite honest, I think some people went out of there with webbing between their toes. But I thought it was really important for us to hear about the number of businesses that support our schools, the number of businesses that are getting started, the way that they are trying to attract more businesses to the city of Marion. They had a great speaker who brought in a lot of analogies between baseball, and says what at Prospect Meadows at Fit. Some didn't like the analogy between the Cubs and the Cardinals, but that's okay.
I really liked it.
Because we know that.
I liked it.
We thoroughly enjoyed it. We laughed. He was very entertaining. But it was good to see a cross-section of all these businesses that we never get to see, or who's involved in it, and what they're doing. And now they're going to have their own building and place to go to, and just how much they are pushing and trying to build on the city of Marion. I mean, it was really astonishing. Nothing negative. Everything was all positive. We're trying to do this and this and this, and really kind of getting ahead of themselves that things were moving so fast, and in some areas, and I see what's happening on our campus when the city puts in the trail that's going down along Armstrong Field and into the woods, and 10 feet wide, and bicycles that can go on there. People can walk with their families and stuff, which is really, really great. And just how Marion and Linn-Mar are working hand in hand to the betterment of not only our district, but our students. And they're doing the same thing with Marion High School and their students, and how bringing together both districts and the city to accomplish some just terrific things for the men and women and the families of Marion. And it's going to be pretty exciting. And when they finish that bicycle trail that goes across 7th Avenue, that's going to be phenomenal on how that opens up to so many things. And so it's good to see all these businesses pitching in and progressing our city. And what is it? It was the 4th year out of 5 or something that we were one of the most progressive cities in the state of Iowa, little old Marion. And to be quite honest, I grew up in Marshalltown. Marshalltown was thriving then. Fisher, Lennox, okay, came to Marion, never even heard of Marion until I applied for a job here. Now, Marion is so much bigger than Marshalltown, because Marshalltown has lost so much. And it's a sense of pride that so many people are involved to the Marion growth. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself at the Medco meeting, and yeah, I talk too much, so I'll sit up now.
Well, I'll just share that I was incredibly proud that not only did they talk about the partnerships that are being built, but we were featured. And Alyssa got to stand up and talk about the venture program and what great collaboration we've had between this, brand new program that none of us knew last year what we were giving the go to. We were just like, yes, go forth. I hope you succeed. Good job. But I want to say she shared that we had 80, Nathan, correct me if I'm wrong, 80 students this year, and over 200 are already registered for next year. And we have all of these growing partnerships with businesses that are getting involved in the strands and helping students with this project-based learning. And to see that featured at such a prominent event and featured so well with our students in attendance, and they talked about the community build project as well. But we have so much support, not just within our own district, but the entire city, and our partnerships with Marion Independent as well. It's a very big moment for me of pride in the community that we get to reside in, and to see all of these businesses come forth and support our students and want to not just support the school but engage actively in their learning. it was a very, for me, that was a real good highlight, along with the Cubs Cardinals, because Cardinals came out on top like they always do. So, anybody else?
I'd just like to say, it's always a great event. It gets us an update on all that's going on in Marion, which is unbelievable sometimes, all the different things that are happening at once. And kudos to everybody involved at Medco. It's a great organization and that. And I know that they were trying to make sure that we use our new facility out there, I know, the meadows, and they were definitely meadows that were very wet at the time. And you know, when you make those plans, it always seems awesome, and you just kind of went with it. But the best part was, besides all the information we got, is some of the people came in boots that looked like what I could have used on the hog farm that I was on.
Galoshes.
But anyway, it was great. I thought it was wonderful information. A lot of people that care about Marion and Linn-Mar, so it's a good thing.
I'll give Shannon a little shout out because he's on the board. He had his baseball jersey on. I didn't hear you that you crashed the golf cart into anybody when you were driving around, so good job.
No major accidents.
Yeah.
It was a great celebration. I thought of just all things Marion, and
good.
After several years of COVID limitations, it was fun to be back out there again with a large group, and we're very fortunate to have such great partners with Medco in the city and the businesses for our school and our community. It was kind of a nice celebration, I thought, to kick things off, even with the soggy conditions.
Yeah.
And Prospect Meadows was a great
It was good.
host as well.
I will say it was soggy, but aside from it, we had the one sunny day last week was the day we were at the ballpark. So even though we were soggy and all of our shoes were wet by the time it was done, we had beautiful weather. If you
We
didn't
weren't
focus,
freezing.
If you didn't focus on what was going on with your feet, we had a really great day for it, and then it just went back to rain on Thursday. So
yeah,
good point.
I just have one thing to add, which is that listening to the presentation and listening to Alyssa McDowell get up and talk about venture, you know, and hearing about how the business community is engaging our students in their learning, and also looking to them as the future of their own businesses, you know, it's really a beautiful thing. And I don't mean that in a cliche way. It really is an amazing thing for our community that we are all so invested in one another. And, you know, I'm just incredibly proud to be a part of a school district and to be a part of a city that is doing this right. And, you know, so happy for our students that they have the kind of opportunities that they do, and that this community is, you know, backing them and, you know, helping them to succeed.
I think what was kind of interesting too is that here we have the city of Marion, and yet we found out that teams that are going to be coming in to Marion, there are teams coming in from Hawaii to play at Prospect Meadows. Now, usually it's the other way around. Marion people going to Hawaii, but now we got youngsters and their parents coming and visiting our city all the way from Hawaii. I was astounded by that.
Hey, Clark?
Yes?
I don't know if you know this, but Hawaii is, wait. Iowa is Hawaii spelled backwards. Write it down. There's a t-shirt.
Okay.
I promise.
We'll let you
it
work on
works.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Write it out.
Moving on.
Next item on the agenda. Rachel, you have an update for us on City Council?
I do, but it's really not much of an update. Just more construction, more development out by Alburnett Road. They have designated some medium and different density housing out there. So other than that, lots of library stuff. It's been very library heavy lately.
'Tis the season for construction. So, all right. Next up, we had some board visits. So we went to Novak on April 26th, and then some of us were able to go out to Operations and Maintenance Transportation last week on Thursday. Does anyone want to share their experiences at either visit?
I'd just say that I was at the Novak visit and got to see some, obviously, when you're watching young kids in school, it's always a lot of fun. Got to join in a PE class. I'd also like to say the staffing at Novak was very, very welcoming. Had some really good conversations, and I want to say I appreciate them for inviting us into their building.
I agree, Novak's a great place, another wonderful elementary. We have lots of them, and we're on our way to finishing up our well, I guess we have now visited everyone that we could. So, you know, great staff, great things going on. It just was, it makes you revived, I think, or at least me as an elementary teacher for so long. It's very, very awesome. And the other one, operations, maintenance, transportation, that is a facility that if people haven't seen before, it's pretty doggone amazing. And we take care of maintenance for, you know, our buses for the most part and everything within. And we have a great staff out there, and they were talked about the upgrade of computerized systems in order to keep track of buses and where everybody is and how you sign in and out. So we're doing well in that respect too.
Yes. Yeah, we do still need bus drivers.
So anybody
Bryce,
wants
thank
to,
you very much.
they're short, they need about 10.
Yeah, they do.
I think the number is, and the thing that I liked about it is, at Novak, is that the kids are enthusiastic, they're engaged, and the faculty and the students are having a good time, and that's great. The operations maintenance, I think they're going to try and do something with our communications department to just kind of show the community exactly what's going on out there. Because there's a lot of buildings, but we've got propane gas, and now we've got that, and we've got diesel, but now diesel fuel is way up here, and they explained that to us. And they do their own maintenance on the buses, and they said there isn't a day goes by that they are not working on some bus. And they brought into us how they determine, you know, the buses that are handicap accessible and the routes that they have to take. There were 2 bus drivers that came in. One bus driver was a Linn-Mar grad. He graduated in '78 and had came from Las Vegas. The other one was a young lady, was a Marion grad, and gave us a perspective on what it was like to drive kids around, and they emphasized that the warmer it gets, the probably more active the students might become. But it is amazing what they can do out there, and all the things that are covered from our maintenance staff and how they mow and take care of our grounds, to the bus drivers and how many there are, and the conference room, and that Carlin Wessels, who works for the agency, was the director at one time. And there are a few of us around, Barry and I and Sandra knew what it was like where the old maintenance and bus barn was. And we had so many buses then that one had to stay outside the fence, and there was like 42, and I think there's 80 some now, and how we have to rotate those through. It's just awesome how everything clicks. And I'll agree 100% with Sandra. When they showed us the big screen, they could show where every single bus was. And to me, that was really amazing. If somebody breaks down, they could call in and they know right where they are. If somebody's not picked up, you know, they could call the bus driver and find out what's going on. And you know, if I had kids that age, it would be very comforting to know that our transportation staff is taking care of our kids, and we know where the buses are, and the buses know where they're supposed to be. So if you got a new bus driver, which did happen, went to, well, you go to this place, and then this student will tell you where to go. Well, that student just happened to be ill that day, and so they had to call in to find out the rest of his route because he was a new driver. And so I will put another push. Anybody that's interested in being a bus driver, I did that myself my first 2 years. Please come to Linn-Mar. We need you, and it's great place to work, and you're taken care of at the transportation department.
Yeah, I will just.
Clark, you must have missed that professional development section when you were taking all those professional development to not talk through your.
I'll just add, Novak was great. I always love, getting to the buildings, but we got to see the JK program in music, and so that was the highlight for me. They had them in 2 groups, and I learned to play the ukulele, not well, but I sat down with the kids, and she showed, the little girl next to me showed me how to hold and how to strum, and that was fun. And then the other group were on keyboards, and everyone had headsets. And so, she gave me my own headset, and they had art on the wall. It happened to be Starry Night by Van Gogh. And she said, we're playing the painting. And what that meant was they just hit the notes on the keyboard, and it was however they envisioned the painting to sound was what they were supposed to do on the keyboard. And it was just these junior kindergartners. So that was the highlight of that trip for me. And then it was my first trip to operations maintenance, and I'm just incredibly impressed. You think about the buses in the big lot, and we have a lot of them, especially if you're on 29th at 2 o'clock, you know better than to be on 29th at 2 o'clock because it's just a line of yellow. But you think about our buses leave, and they pick up the kids, and they take them where they're going to go, and then they take them home, and that's the end of the thought. But there's a whole lot happening out there, and the fact that we do it all in-house, we don't outsource our buses, we don't outsource our maintenance. We have an incredible crew out there. It was really great to go out and meet everybody and see it in action, and the technology. Yes, we track our buses, and we could see one was in Waterloo being serviced, and there was something going on in Cascade, and they know where everything is. And I'm just really impressed with where that technology is going to take us and what we're going to be able to do with that. So it seems simple. We have buses, and they take people places, but it's so much more complicated than that, and we have a great crew doing it. So it was a great visit for me. Even with the rain, we didn't mind standing out there in the rain and listening to all of that. So invite us back again next year.
Well, thank board members for making it work. We had a lot of board visits the second half of the year as things opened up again, and we do those during the middle of the day as opposed to used to do them early in the day before school, and you heard more of a presentation at that time, but you didn't get to see the buildings or the operations in action. So by moving those to the middle of the day, that helped you could see things more firsthand, but also makes it tougher for your daily schedules, I recognize. So I really commend you for making as many of those board visits as possible from everybody in our attendance. This spring has been fantastic with those as well, and I know that means a lot to the staff that you take the time to come and to visit. And I know on the flip side, you also really enjoyed that as well. So now that we've wrapped those up this year, I want to thank you for that. And we're debating options for next year, but I think if anything, it's really shown this year the value of those visits. So we'll definitely continue that and just tweak it a little bit for next year as well. So.
All right. Well, you're up next with a very exciting announcement, so go for it.
Yeah, I'm excited. This is something the board, I believe last board meeting approved to offer the bonus retention money to staff that did not receive it from the governor's initial proposal, assuming the school budget review committee would approve our request. So we went to the school budget review committee last Tuesday for our request and our official decision to hear from them at that time. It was a little shaky in the morning because we were the last school to present, and the first couple schools kind of got run through the ringer on their request, and I wasn't sure they're going to get through, but they did, and then we did ultimately as well. So really pleased to be able to offer the remaining staff members that work at Linn-Mar that did not receive the initial $1,000 from the governor's bonus retention program, that we'll be able to offer that for them. In the process of making that happen right now, our business office and HR are working through that, so their June paychecks will be reflective of that. So that's over 600 employees for us, so it's a big deal, and it's really nice to be able to offer that. We've been very fortunate to have as many staff stick with us through these challenging times, and this is one small token of appreciation to do that. So thank you for approving that last board meeting, 2 board meetings ago, whenever that was, and we're glad to get that approved last Tuesday. I do want to put a special thanks to JT Anderson for supporting this process. Even after he was done, he joined me at the SBRC meeting as well, just to kind of see that through the whole process too. So I'll give him a kudos for doing that.
Thank you,
even though
JT.
he
Says a
wasn't
lot
working
about
here.
JT. Yes, thank you.
We miss you.
I also want to thank the board because this was a hard one for us, and we all wanted to do it from the beginning, but there was the budget concerns, and we didn't have the spending authority, and we all came together, and we sent the letter out, and these committee meetings that were held last week, that's not a normal thing. And I really believe that our advocacy played a role in that. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time and really advocating for our staff. That's why we're here. And this time around it worked. And so we were able to get that spending authority, which makes us not go into debt, and able to give these retention bonuses out, and they are well deserved. So I'm really very happy that it all worked out the way it did. So thank you. Keep going. Update?
Update for him. Just one item, just kind of a big item, but I want to give you an update as well. Had our first facility steering committee meeting last Wednesday afternoon. Met with OPN, Chris Gates from Operations and Maintenance, and then Jeff Gustafson joined us because so many projects are directly tied to the high school. And then Dave Nicholson, once he comes on board as our CFO, COO, will join us as well. Had a long but productive meeting with OPN. The projects that we're looking at are relatively smaller in scale compared to some of the ones we've done over the years, but there's a level of complexity because we're doing multiple things at the same time or overlapping times. So that just involves a lot of different people in that process as well. So it was good to have kind of that initial organizational meeting. So now each of the 4 projects in phase 1 that we covered last time, the north parking lot, tennis courts, administrative building, and the performance venue, we have initial steps started for each of those. For example, the administration building, we're meeting with OPN tomorrow afternoon with our cabinet group to kind of talk through more of the specific things for the future of this future admin building, what that will look like. Tennis courts, we've had some really good feedback from some individuals in our Lion Learning session, from coaches in the meantime, so we're going to get a smaller group pulled together to look at those next steps. The north parking lot's a pretty simple one to knock out, so we're working with Hall Engineers. It's one of the contracts on today's board agenda. If that gets approved, we'll move forward with their plans as well. And then the performance venue is the most complex of the initial projects that we have to look at as well. So starting in early June, we'll work with some of the fine arts staff of the high school and high school administration to really start putting together, as OPN calls it, the wants, the wishes, and the needs as far as what we look at, and then what we can afford from there too. So just beginning those early design phases to the process. One thing I will mention, administrative building we talked about last time, looking at that area east of Excelsior. Still not sure if north of the new access road or south of the access road is the best location yet. Engineers are still working on different options. I think we'll hear from them probably sometime this week on what their recommendation will be too. So we'll keep you up to date on that as well. So exciting stuff, and I think there'll be a really busy process for us this summer as these subcommittees start to take shape and begin to do some research, and get into that design phase will be fun. Nothing drastically new, but just lots of work in the process.
Any questions for Shannon? All right. New business.
I move to approve the open enrollment requests as presented.
I have a motion by Barry, a second by Sandra. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. Oh, sorry.
Hang on one second on that. On this consent agenda, because I don't have it in front of me and I look through the agenda, are the naming of the streets is that as a part of the consent agenda?
It is not.
Is it on this agenda at
No.
all?
Nope,
It is
it's
not.
just information for the board, but it is not an agenda approval item.
I just
so
wanted to make sure.
You're safe.
Okay.
So, yep.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Melissa. My apologies.
Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion by Melissa and a second by Rachel. Any discussion?
I just got 2 quick things, and I know I've brought this up in previous meetings. Items 704.4 and 4.5 are both contracts where dates, the work is complete, and we're voting to approve those contracts tonight. And I know that was something that we were going to be working on. Just wanted to state that it's here.
Yep, and we are still, heard that last time, recognize that, and are definitely working to get that addressed going forward. These are still kind of part of the cleanup process from the past. But as we look forward, we should be able to make those communications and coordinate ahead of time as well.
Gotcha. I would agree with that. That's a big deal.
I would like to,
Wait, we've got to pass it first.
I'm sorry.
Or are you going to do your retirement thing? Go ahead.
I would like to thank Ann Loftus and her retirement for Linn-Mar Student Support Services teacher, and hopefully she enjoys that retirement, and thank her for all that she has done for our students and our district.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. All right, next up, we have board communications. So lots of stuff going on in the next 2.5 weeks, which is the final 2.5 weeks of the school year. So we do have the senior recognition night is coming up. That's not a requirement to attend, but we are invited. The Success
Late.
Center.
We're late.
What? Oh, that's right. It's going on right now. Never mind.
It's right now.
That's right. It's right now. We do have the Success Center graduation parade this weekend, or this Friday. So if you've RSVP'd to that and plan to attend, make sure Gayla knows. We've got some committee meetings coming up. I do need a volunteer for the May 19th City Council meeting. I can do it if no one else is available, but Barry?
I'll do it.
Okay. Right. And I can take the June 9th one. Okay. Either way. Let's see, and then I can take the 23rd then if you're going to take the 9th.
It's kind of a real quick communication thing too. The number of course, I'm fortunate. I have 3 granddaughters in the district, but the number of field trips that are going on right now is just unbelievable. We weren't able to do that for a couple of years, so I think that's just making it more fun yet for them. They're just having a blast.
I heard the high school band trip went really well over the weekend. So I think that's about it on the calendar. I mean, lots of stuff going on. You all have a manila envelope. Next meeting, we will have a closed session to do Shannon's final evaluation. So you can fill this out and send it to me by next Sunday evening, whatever date that is, somebody help me out here, May 15th. By the end of the day on the 15th, if you can send me your responses, and then on Monday, he will get our responses and you will get his, and then we will each have a week. So you have a week to formulate your thoughts, and then a week to review each other's thoughts, and then we'll have his evaluation at the end of the next meeting. You will notice that I did add to the end of the form a kind of a general, what else do you think? Because we all felt that that was missing from the last time. So that is a change on there. So just send that to me by the end of the day on Sunday. That'd be great. Any other communications? All right. We'll move on to audience communications. Yes. Take if you have to use the restroom, we're going to recess for 2 minutes.
Oh, geez.
Yes, and leave your microphone here.
Thank you.
for being patient. There was a whole rush of us, so I think everybody needed it. All right. Audience communication. First up, Reverend Gary, oh wait, I gotta read the thing, sorry. At this time, I am calling those signed up to speak to the microphone in the order that they signed up. We will receive and acknowledge comments, but will not engage in a dialogue with the speaker because of the set agenda for the meeting. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and should be shared in a respectful manner. Reverend Gary Sneller.
Hello, I am Reverend Gary Sneller. I am a resident, taxpayer, and a voter here in the school district, and also co-leader of a local faith coalition, Stand in Unity, which is allied with Marion Alliance for Racial Equity and other local equity, diversity, and inclusion groups. And I am here tonight to thank you, school board members, for your patience in listening to all of the voices last school board meeting regarding policy 50413, 50413R. And also to thank you for your considered decision seeking to balance the needs, the rights, and responsibilities of all students at Linn-Mar schools. Now, it's obvious that not everyone agreed with your decision. Not everyone on the board agreed with your decision, but multiple voices were heard and different viewpoints had representation on the board, as it should be in an open, free, and pluralistic society. The decision has been made. Now, the challenge of effective leadership is to help our diverse community navigate the choppy waters of discord and uncertainty about how competing freedoms, needs, and rights can equitably, safely, and respectfully be negotiated and lived out in our public schools. I am convinced that all of you have the best interests of Linn-Mar students at heart, and that you are sincerely attempting to ensure that all students at Linn-Mar can learn in a safe and respectful environment. Please remain strong in your commitment to provide quality public education for all students here at Linn-Mar, and may we, as a diverse community, commit ourselves to do the same thing. Let's work together for the common good. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Pearson. My daughter teaches in the district, and my granddaughter is a student. I just wanted to speak very briefly to also say thank you to all of you for your patience and the grace you showed throughout your last meeting. You listened to all the comments, pro and con, from those who were kind and polite, and from those who were certainly not. And to say thank you for making the hard decision after listening to so much vitriol to approve the 2 policies, supporting dignity and respect for all Linn-Mar students, particularly for those who identify as transgender or gender nonconforming. Despite the vocal opposition to which you've listened politely, I want to assure you that there are many in the district who support the justice your vote has codified. Thank you for representing students.
Rick Mersch.
My name's Rick Mersch. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a pediatrician here in town. And in 1990, I graduated from Linn-Mar High School. I live in the district. I pay taxes in the district. And I wanted to thank you as well for your courage. It takes a lot of courage to stand up to what I witnessed or what I watched on the YouTube video for the people that came to the meeting. And I applaud you for your courage for what I consider doing right. I have transgender children in my practice, and I thank you for standing up for them, for sure. I also wanted to say to any parent who was standing up for their child, I apologize that you were called a bigot. If you fear for your children, I don't agree with that fear, because the transgender children that I have in my practice are not predators. They just want to belong like everybody else. But you're not hateful because you want to stand up for your kid and because you're in fear for your kid. I don't agree with that fear, but you're not a bigot. And for anyone who wants to recall this board or wants to vote against them, Melissa Walker is a mom in my practice, one of the best mothers in my practice. Clark Weaver taught me gym. I hate aerobics more than going to the dentist. And he allowed me not to do aerobics. He allowed me to run laps in the gym because he took pity on me. Sandra Nelson taught me second grade. She taught all of my children second grade. Shannon Biscard coached my daughter's softball team for 6 years. She was the least athletic kid on the team. Sorry, Allie. All of these people are dedicated to children, dedicated to all children. They stood up for the least among us, and I thank you for that.
Gretchen Laya.
Good evening. My name is Gretchen Lawyer, and I am a member of the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity. And I'm going to be reading a letter here that was sent to the board and administrators dated April 26th. Dear board and administrators, the Marion Alliance for Racial Equity, Mayor, would like to thank you for your patience and willingness to listen at Monday's meeting and for your dedication to all students in the Linn-Mar district. We appreciate your commitment to transparency and support for equity, and thank you for protecting transgender and gender nonconforming students by approving policies Code 504.13 and Code 504.13R that evening. Though the night was long and emotionally charged, you all showed respect for each speaker's viewpoint, grace under pressure, a willingness to ask important questions, and a commitment to fairness. Students may face repercussions from this policy decision, and we expect you'll provide clear support, guidance, and a process for reporting concerns. We are confident you've made the right decision. You voted for inclusive, equitable, and successful outcomes for all students in the district, and we appreciate your continued support. Sincerely, the Mayor Education Subcommittee members. Thank you.
Try this again. First of all, I am a teacher, community member for over 25 years. Number two, I wish I would have done speech when I was in high school. It would have helped me a lot. I can do it in front of my little ones at school, but it's hard for me to do this. But I'm going to get better tonight. And if any of you want to come Friday, we're having our bike rodeo. Officer Dobbs will be there, as he always is, and he comes in and teaches our children outside through all of our stations how to do our arm signals. And so he is so gracious to do that every year. He's a phenomenal man. So I am going to talk about Title IX. Real quick, Title IX is about ensuring equal education and treatment to students on the basis of sex. We do not deny any child, or ever should ever deny any child, a quality or equal education. All children are precious, and they deserve our best teaching. Our new policy is extending that definition beyond reason. Two areas I feel are, it's not equal education by making a student stay in a hotel room overnight with somebody who is a biological opposite, nor is it okay to have a child be forced to have them in the same changing locker room, changing facility, or restroom as unknown biological opposites. That can cause severe trauma to students on which that is forced. A more suitable option or solution could be found instead of forcing trauma on our innocent children. And secondly, allowing students to decide who should be at the school gender support plan meeting. I don't know where it says in that Title IX law about withholding or denying their child's environment, their issues, some concerns, and a plan from their parents. I feel all parents deserve to know and be allowed to be in on all support meetings of their child because they are the parents, we are not. We have no right to make decisions about other people's children without parent involvement. They know their child and they love their children more than any of us do. Any talk with a counselor who creates and distributes a plan outside of that confidential relationship with a teacher, a coach, a nurse, any staff member, has now taken this confidential relationship outside.
That's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Clymer.
Thank you. I am a parent and a community member of Linn-Mar, and I also wanted to express gratitude to you who continue to support all our students and staff. It's easy to get lost in the voices of those in opposition to supporting the diversity of our students and efforts to apply equitable law and policies to minoritized students. 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege to sit with the students in the gym, impacted but not deterred by the derogatory statements by parents, other students, neighbors, and community members, near and far. I also watched as threats occurred in real time towards them and in the following days and weeks. And also the threats against you, your families, your jobs. You as having roles as elected board members by all of us in this community. And I'm sorry that happened to you, as well as those of us who stand at this podium willingly as volunteers and voices for our own children as well. I'm sorry that has happened to any of you in this space, that we've been given this privilege to speak up on behalf of our interests and our rights. Please hear the message of our unwavering support for continued advocacy, action, and transparency within our district. I thank you, and may we persist in the best interest of our kids and our community. Thank you.
Cindy Kettlecamp.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kettlecamp, and I am a resident of the district and a taxpayer. I want to address a couple of things, if I might. I know a lot of you, and I've known a lot of you for a long time. And something that did disturb me here today, and also at the last meeting, was an obvious disdain for one of your own members, almost like an attack. And that really bothered me. And then when we got into some of the presentations and we looked at that innovative learning model, I thought to myself, that is what the board needs to implement. There were a lot of good things about that, and maybe by working together, Clark, you even said, everybody has ideas, and it's important to have all ideas heard. And that is why when it appeared to some at the last meeting that your minds were closed, the parents needed to find someone to listen and to encourage them and to support their ideas. If you reject the values and opinions of any group, no matter how big or small, then they are going to seek, other affirmation. And that goes for the pro and the con that were here last week. I think what a lot of the parents are looking for is just safety. They're wanting, like Amy said, they're wanting to protect their children. Safety is important to them. There are creative ways, like I spoke 2 weeks ago, that we can think outside the box. Single-use restrooms, stalls that go all the way up, different changing facilities. We can do all these things. And all of our children are precious. And we do need to work to make sure everyone has, that everyone feels safe when they come to school. And going on to the governor's meeting, how many of you board members called the governor after the meeting to express anything? A lot of people did, and I think that's what generated that meeting. It wasn't that you were left out. I think she was just responding to those people that were very, very upset. And that's something that we should have done here. We should have responded to the people that were very upset. And that's why I went back to the presentation, where you talked about check, check, done. We didn't do that. We did not do check, check, done. So I happened to see that invitation on social media, just a post, boom. I just texted Stephanie, which was what it said to do. And
Time, please.
okay, thank you.
Ralph Kendrick.
We need truth in these board meetings. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. The superintendent needs to tell the truth to the board so they can make educated decisions. The board needs to tell the truth to the public so we can have confidence in our elected leadership. Let's talk about the truth in regards to policy 50413. Mr. Bisgard, at the April 11th meeting, you said this, quote, "The law essentially says exactly what our policy is saying. We've been following this law for the past 5 or 6 years. 6 paragraphs in this policy refer to a gender support plan." This is an email from a student services representative at Linn-Mar dated 4/27. With the passing of this policy on Monday, we do not have a template of a gender support plan. We have seen examples, but not created one specifically for Linn-Mar. We will be working on this, unquote. Sir, how is it possible you've been following a policy for 5 or 6 years when you still do not have a template of a gender support plan? In the April 25th board meeting, Ms. Murray had the following to say about the policy, quote, "We've always followed the law. This is a clarification. It adheres to Iowa code." Here's a point from the policy. The gender support plan will be maintained in the student's temporary records. Here's what the board's attorney said, quote, "There is not a specific definition in Iowa code of a temporary record. That term is not something that exists in Iowa law." Mr. Rollinger asked the attorney, "Where do support plans come from in Iowa code?" The board attorney responded, "This is a concept that is not established in Iowa law." Despite what Ms. Murray said, temporary records and gender support plans do not exist in Iowa code. In the April 11th board meeting, Ms. Wall had this to say about the policy, quote, "Why are we going line by line? We already paid our attorneys to do that." 5 minutes later in the same meeting, the student support representative said, quote, "The only part that our attorneys reviewed was the overnight trips." That's 3 paragraphs of a 24-paragraph policy. We need truth in these board meetings. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. I'm respectfully asking you to tell the truth. If you don't, I'll be up here every 2 weeks to point these things out to you. Thank you.
Jones.
I have a lot to unpack here. First things first is I wasn't also invited to this meeting with Governor Reynolds. I saw it on a Facebook post, and I emailed them the contact, and I said, "Hey, can I be at this meeting?" And they responded with acceptance. So any one of you could have seen that on Facebook, and you could have emailed and been there as well if you would have paid attention to any of the stakeholders in your district. You guys attacked Matt. By adding this to the policy or to this agenda, it was a blatant attack on a board member. Just sitting over there and reviewing your code of ethics, I find it really funny how you had policy already readily available to quote. And just looking over there, I saw that ethics 202.1 number 10 says make no disparaging remarks in or out of the board meetings about board members and their opinions. You just did that publicly. Also, policy number 206.1 says members of the board will be encouraged to participate in conferences and share their learning with their colleagues. He just did. Last board meeting, you heard roughly 50 patrons in the community oppose this policy. Over 3 hours of public comment, and you chose to adopt it quickly within 9 minutes. Re-listening to this video, you heard a man saying, "Call the vote, just call the vote, call the vote," 4 times under the audience noise. Why was this vote rushed, is why I ask. A father of a rape victim stood here and pleaded this policy would trigger that child's PTSD. Again, you ignored it. Your decision on this policy was decided before a parent even took to the podium. It was stated this policy needed to be adopted to prevent future potential litigation. This board responds to financial threats, not genuine concerns from their stakeholders. A mother stood at this podium and said, "You have 30 days to resign." The majority of this district, your stakeholder, formally asks for your resignation. For those of you who voted yes to policy 504-13-R and to Superintendent Bisgard, you now have 16 days remaining. Thank you.
Allie Marsh.
Hello everyone, as it was announced, my name's Allie. It's nice to be here tonight. Nice to meet some of you and to see some of you again. I went to Linn-Mar from kindergarten through 12th grade, graduated with the class of 2018. And I'm still connected. Obviously I'm here. I got sunburnt today going to the tennis meet. Go Lions, they did win districts. But I stand here today as a future educator. I'm going to Coe College to become a teacher. And I would like to thank you for standing up for our students. The overarching theme that I have found in every single one of my education courses, doesn't matter the content, doesn't matter the age range, we love our students. That is why I, myself, am going to be an educator. That is why my peers are in the program with me. We know that our students should be loved. I felt that at Linn-Mar. I felt that with my teachers, and I appreciate that to the ends of the earth. I was loved in my education, and I would like to give that to the future of the district, to the future of any students anywhere. And I know that because you supported those policies, that's what you believe as well. And it is so reassuring to someone who is in this district, to someone who still has siblings in the district, that that is something that you believe as well. And I thank you so very much for supporting our students, for supporting the love that you have for them. I'm so glad that this was the community that I was a part of from starting kindergarten, and I am still a part of today. Thank you.
Thank each of you for spending some time with us this evening and sharing your thoughts. That ends audience communication. So I would look for a motion to adjourn. All right. Motion to adjourn made by Melissa, seconded by Rachel at 7:37. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion